Hello and welcome to Beaver Hunter Scale Models. In this short video I want to show in detail how I paint zinc surfaces. So if you have a few minutes and this sounds interesting, please stay tuned. These 3D prints are the objects I will paint in this video, but of course all zinc objects can be painted this way. I started with base coating all pieces with a medium gray. I used a brush here because I prefer brush painting, but of course this could be done by airbrush too. Next I used a dark bluish gray and applied this by sponge like I would do it on a chipping. The brush was unloaded on a paper towel before touching the model, and I turned and twisted it to create an irregular, not repeating pattern on the whole surface. The blue magic sponge by Getz Miniatures was helpful because with its sharp tip I could treat the hard to reach areas. This was repeated with a light gray tone. I tried to place these light gray chips in between the dark gray ones without covering them, except where the dark gray chips came out too big. The same gray tone was then diluted with matte varnish to a glaze consistency and was then applied over the whole surface. This glaze unified the previous steps and blended the chips into the surface. A dry soft brush was helpful to break paint bubbles and remove pooling paint. On the lid of the barrel the light gray was helpful because it highlighted the lettering with a nice bright outline like a light pin wash. Next I made a glaze with the dark gray to bring the surface back into a bluish gray, more metallic-like direction. This glaze was slightly thinner because the dark gray was stronger. If a glaze comes out too thick on the model, just add more pure matte varnish by brush to the surface and dilute it right on the model by brushing the matte varnish into the just applied layer. Of course, this works only when the layer is still wet. On larger surfaces like the barrel, I stippled the last layer into the still wet surface. This brings additional texture and makes the finish more irregular. Deck 10 was used for the next glaze because it has a nice bright grayish tone and is perfect to add the light parts a zinc surface has. This was also slightly more diluted to make it not that dominant. And I again highlighted the lettering on the lid with it. And a soft dry brush was used to blend the glaze and remove excess paint. And as a last glaze I again used the dark gray and this time only applied it into the lower areas or areas that were deeper. Like this I created a depth effect by creating contrast between the parts and implied some fake shadows. With a flat white brush saturated with pure matte varnish, I blended the edges smooth. This works only as long as the just applied layer is still wet and the strongly diluted paint dries pretty fast. So I worked in small sections and made sure that I blended faster than the paint dried. And that's the zinc surfaces basically done, but there was a bit more I could do here to finish these pieces. Zinc itself doesn't rust, but the metal handle of the coffee pot or the rings of the barrel can. So I used these two dark brown rusty paints, mixed in equal parts, to base paint these. The raised areas of the lettering were also painted with this mix as a contrast to the bright pinwash-like glazes, and that created a nice contrast and made the lettering stand out more and be better visible. With these two paints, also mixed in equal parts, I mixed a light rust tone and applied this diluted with matte varnish as a rust wash over the dark rust. With a dry brush I blended these so they are not completely covering the rusted parts and end up more irregular. On the barrel I applied it not only onto the rings and the caps, but also into the direct surrounding. This is supposed to imply fresh rust being washed from the metal parts onto the zinc surface. I built up the effect in several layers until I was satisfied, and I went a bit heavier here, as the next step would tune this step down a bit. Last step. After the piece is dried completely overnight, I used the dark brown oil wash from Modeler's World to finish the models with a pin wash. A pin wash makes a model look sharper and crispier because it emphasizes shapes, edges and crevices. It just makes a model look better and therefore is one, if not the most important technique, at least to me. And I don't want to forget to mention my source of inspiration. I liked Uncle Nightshift's approach of painting zinc, so I took it as a foundation, changed a few paints and steps here and there, and ended up with this approach. And with that being said, we are done for today. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you liked what you saw and this type of short video. It was a lot of fun painting these things and making the video. So if you like it too, maybe these short tutorials can become a regular thing. Let me know what you think about it. And of course, I would be very happy if you support me by subscribing and liking the video. I'd really appreciate that. Of course, I could have continued here with weathering the models, but that wasn't the topic of this video, so I tried to keep it short. Und nein, das gibt es nicht auch auf Deutsch. So, that's it for now, stay safe and until the next time.